What makes a great antagonist? By definition, an antagonist is a character that directly opposes the protagonist. At times, this is the villain of the story. However, the main villain doesn't always necessarily fill the role of the antagonist. An antagonist can be a truly neutral character, or perhaps even chaotic or lawfully neutral. So long as they fulfill the role of opposing the protagonist's ideals, a character can be called an antagonist. There are plenty of examples of great antagonists in fiction. Some you might be familiar with are characters such as Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender, Darth Vader from Star Wars, Char from Mobile Suit Gundam, and Griffith from Berserk. Typically, one thing that can make an antagonist enticing is if their ideals are morally grey, allowing us as the audience to relate to the character, or if their motives are understandable due to life circumstances, for example in their backstory. Now to me, there's one character that plays this role the absolute best. One that is so simple in design and philosophy, yet still deep enough to bring about conversation, and is the absolute perfect foil to the protagonist of the series. This character is Raven from Zoids Chaotic Century. I'm gonna say this right now, there is some heavy bias coming from myself here. Zoids Chaotic Century is my favorite anime of all time, and Raven is close to, if not my favorite antagonist of all time. So of course, I have an attachment and strong feelings towards this character, but at the end of the day, that did act as the inspiration for this video. So I hope you all enjoy this deep dive on Raven as a character, and feel free to let me know in the comments who is the perfect antagonist in your eyes, and what makes them work so well. While you're down there, feel free to like the video if you enjoy, and consider subscribing for more Zoids and anime content as a whole. Now let's get into it. From his debut in episode 12 of Zoids Chaotic Century, Raven commanded your attention. And he's the most simplistic, yet one of the best things about Raven. He does exactly what an antagonist is supposed to do, and he does it perfectly. His ideals directly conflict with the protagonist, Van, and that's all. He doesn't have some ulterior motive. He doesn't want to reset the world and destroy everything in order to create a new timeline with a crippled cowboy and an Italian wannabe rapper. He doesn't have supporters or some evil team underneath him or anything. That role is left for the villains, that being Prozin and Hilt from Chaotic Century and Guardian Force respectively. Raven directly stands in front of Van's goals for peace. All he seemingly wants out of life is to destroy Zoids, whereas Van loves Zoids and everything about them. A rivalry between the two develops really quickly as soon as the episode that Raven is introduced, and it frustrates Raven immensely how much Van goes on about how much he cares about the Zoids, as if they have feelings or something, when for all of Raven's life he's only been able to see them as machines for war. This is due to Raven's upbringing. You see, Raven is almost like our well-known friend Eren Yeager, in a way. Just replace Titans with Zoids. Zoids tore Raven's life apart as a child. They took his parents away from him through constant work as Zoid scientists, draining their time and their energy, and as well as in their death at the hands of Ambient, the organoid. This threw him head first into a war-torn country as an orphan, who was ironically enough going to be adopted by Van's father, Dan Flyheight, and become his brother, until the sought for power from another organoid brought upon the death of Dan Flyheight, which was the last real father figure that Raven could have ever had in his life. From then on out, Raven was alone in this world, and you just can't reprimand him from putting all of that blame on the Zoids. Raven didn't even like Zoids before his life got torn apart, probably in part because they took his parents away from him all the time. And we see in a flashback that he even talked to his dad about wishing he could live on Earth instead of Planet Z, because there weren't any Zoids there. After losing to Van and nearly being killed at the end of Chaotic Century, Raven loses himself. It's as if he's in a trance, existing like a force of nature, acting upon each and every military base he happens to stumble by. He's humiliated by his defeat, he doesn't even know if Van's still alive, and all he has left is his raw instincts, and all he's ever known is how to destroy. It's as if he's still working for Prozin after the war happened and he thinks there's still a war going on or something. Of course, after a plethora of bases are destroyed by a single man and a black organoid, Van starts to catch wind that Raven might be back. Van follows his road of destruction to where he predicts that Raven would strike next, and Raven proceeds to show up at that said base. He uses extremely destructive and brutal tactics in order to take out as many Zoids as he can, all while still in this unconscious state. As soon as Van apprehends him, they lock eyes for a moment, and in that moment, Raven finally wakes up. His faceless expression turns into a smirk, and he finally has found something to keep him living. The Endeavor to kill Van. Raven just does not care who or what gets in his way. He will not feel truly free until the shackles of Van Flyheight are removed from his ankles. Throughout the series, Raven has proven that he is more than happy to do anything it takes to destroy Van. One of the encounters that demonstrates this the clearest is the battle at Mount Osa, where even once the volcano erupts, Raven persists and continues to fight. He pushes his Saberfang to extreme lengths, tearing it apart, trying to pierce the Shield Liger's energy shield, saying to Van that what happens to the Zoid doesn't matter, and that if it means that I'll defeat you, then I can live with that. Another situation similar to this is Van and Raven's last battle in Chaotic Century, where Raven forcibly snaps the Geno Breaker's ankles in order to make a maneuver that would let the charged particle beam hit Van's Blade Liger. It literally looks like that scene in Tokyo Ghoul when Kaneki... You get what I'm talking about. He truly just does not care. All he has left in life is the pursuit to destroy Van. It's only about a bit over halfway through Guardian Force when Raven loses Shadow, the one Zoid that has been by his side for years through thick and thin, that Raven finally cracks. We see him burst into a stream of tears amongst his busted Geno Breaker and frozen friend. The scene genuinely gets me a bit teary-eyed hearing Raven's cold, tough guy persona finally break for the first time in the series. Running towards Shadow, telling him to hold on and that he's coming, only for Shadow to pass before Raven actually gets there in time. Not that he could have really changed anything, but that kind of makes it hurt a little bit more. Seeing Raven actually embrace Shadow too, it all just comes out at once. Raven literally just lost his only friend. From here on out, we see a completely different side of Raven. He carries Shadow's corpse all the way back to his old home, back to where his parents were killed. This is where we start to learn more about Raven's backstory that I was mentioning earlier. He reminisces over everything that's happened up until this point, and just says that he doesn't want to be alone again. Out of nowhere, Shadow starts to glow and turns into a bright light, and then quickly vanishes into thin air. Don't ask me how this works. I don't know, it's Zoids, it's complicated. This kind of, at the very least, snaps Raven out of his own sorrow, and it angers him, and we're better to fuel that anger than back at Hiltz, the guy who's currently trying to take over the whole world, and the one at fault for Shadow's death. Now this is where Raven truly starts to stand on his own 2 feet, and he doesn't care which side he's fighting for, as long as he's fighting someone for something, and his motivation is anger and avenging Shadow. Unfortunately, he gets obliterated by Hiltz as he can't bring out the full potential of the Geno Breaker on his own. But somehow, he manages to survive this encounter with Hiltz, thanks to the help of Reese. And for some time, while Hiltz is off on his quest to destroy everything, Raven and Reese just kind of go off on their own, wandering around, warning some nearby cities of the danger, until eventually Reese gives Raven a slither of hope, telling him that if he takes her to the Zoid Eve, he may have a chance to see Shadow again. And this is the first time in a while we've seen Raven become proactive again, as he would do absolutely anything to get Shadow back. So I'm adding this in post because I think it's very important and I forgot to gloss over it. There's actually a scene where Raven is talking to Reese and reflects about what he's actually done. Reese asks Raven if seeing what Hiltz is doing makes him angry, to which Raven replies, "I can't even count how many fortresses and bases I've destroyed. I don't have a right to be angry now. After everything I've done, I guess it all just comes back to haunt you eventually." It really reflects that Raven's come a long way since the days where he used to just be destroying bases and doing everything like that. Really important scene of Raven actually reflecting on everything, so I thought I'd mention that here. Once they arrive to the Zoid Eve, they do find Shadow there, but he doesn't actually remember Raven. We get to see a bit of a tender moment where Raven doesn't want to hurt Shadow, in comparison to their first meeting when he just full on jumps him in order to tame him. Eventually though, Shadow does actually come around to Raven, and although not necessarily stated, we can assume he gets his memory back, or at the very least I like to think that. And then from here on out, Raven's battle is with Prozan and Hilt. Not too long after, Van appears at the Zoid Eve and Raven saves his life and tells him that he is the only one that's allowed to kill him. Van is extremely surprised by this turn of events, and in the end, Raven and Van actually work together in order to defeat Hilt and the Death Saurer. This is the best way I've seen an antagonist and a protagonist join forces together, and is closely rivaled by Zyrin in Zoids Genesis, but that's a topic for another day. I love this approach because there's no messing around. I literally wrote f***ing around into the script, and I can't say that on YouTube, so we'll forget about that. So besides the straightforwardness of this team up, there's a few things that make me consider it better than any other. First of all, Raven doesn't randomly just become a good guy. Even after this battle takes place, it's not like he can go and join the gang like Zuko did, for example. Like, he can't just go around back with Van and the boys and have a laugh at dinner. He literally tried to kill them multiple times, and they won't forget that. And it's not like Raven showed any remorse for it either. Raven and Van simply had a mutual respect for each other as Zoid pilots, and had a common enemy that stood in their way. So they worked together for the only time in the series, and it was absolutely beautiful to see. But after that, they went their separate ways. You can even see that in the ending, when you can see Reese and Raven looking like they're about to go on their own journey, and Van coming back to all of his friends. Now, while it would have been nice for Raven to have an actual redemption arc, kind of like Zuko, I feel as though Raven cutting ties and probably never seeing any of them again just works better for his character. He's not like Zuko. He's older than Zuko, he tends to be a lot more violent than Zuko, and he has killed a lot more people than Zuko. So while I do see the parallels and I've gone on a little tangent on how they can be a bit similar, they're not the same. And for me at least, Raven just works better. But I really freaking like Zuko. He is an awesome antagonist in his own right. The last thing I wanted to mention about Raven is the score that's given to him within the anime. Raven's theme in Chaotic Century is one of the most badass things you will ever hear, and it always, without a shred of a doubt, demands your full attention. It's one of those things I always get comments about people remembering from Zoids, and that is because it truly is so memorable. Unfortunately, I can't play it here in this video because this will get striked and taken down. However, I can add a card up here and a link in the description for where you can actually listen to it and relive all of those memories. In summary, Raven is the perfect foil to Van Flyheight in every single way. He is ruthless and will do anything in order to make things go his way. He doesn't need a redemption arc because that's just not his style. But his growth after losing his best friend and partner Shadow is truly a sight to behold. And throughout the many anime I've watched and manga I've read, I'm still yet to find an antagonist that I personally resonate with more. That is what makes a great antagonist. And that is why Raven, in my eyes, is the perfect antagonist. Thanks for watching.